Breaking news. 30 years late, that is. You see, the New York Times just reported a little less than a week ago in their podcast, The Daily, about the dangers of ultra-processed foods and causing chronic diseases here in our country. Well, hello, New York Times. 30 years ago, way back then, I reported all about the dangers of ultra-processed foods in my book, Goodbye Illness, Hello Wellness. In that groundbreaking book, I talked about the over 3,000 chemicals and the sulfur-containing compounds and the over 12,000 chemicals that are routinely used by the manufacturing industry in their packaging materials. And I discussed how those things damage the health of the American population, and yet it took the New York Times over 30 years to report that information. Now, trust me, I'm delighted that the New York Times Daily Podcast reported that. But my question is, what in the world took you so long? You see, on top of that, they failed to talk about the damage to our digestive system, our gut, and to the microbiome, the beneficial bacteria inside of our gut, that the ultra-processed foods do that to our bodies, and they cause a plethora, a laundry list of chronic diseases. I also talked about the leaky gut. Well, what is the leaky gut? Well, inside of our bellies, we have a gut lining. And that lining has a surface area that's about the size of a tennis court. Think of a tennis court surface area. Well, that's how big the surface area is in the lining of our gut. Now, it's very selective what it allows to get through that lining and then into the blood. It's very selective, and it only allows nutrients and other compounds that are beneficial to get into the bloodstream. However, when it gets damaged and there's holes or cracks in it, it becomes leaky. We call it the leaky gut. And at that point, it allows particles of undigested food that are too large to cause food allergies. It allows toxins and bacteria and other compounds to get into the bloodstream, and then it causes havoc and it causes inflammation and leads to chronic disease. And ultra-processed foods is one of the culprits that causes, one of the leading culprits that causes the leaky gut. Now, the New York Times did a great job in really talking about how we have an epidemic level of obesity and diabetes and heart disease and cancer and brain disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And they talked about how ultra-processed foods cause those things. And again, I have to applaud the New York Times for doing that. They finally exposed the truth and let the American people know how these ultra-processed foods are damaging our food supply and causing many, many chronic diseases here in our country. But again, it took them too long. And these ultra-processed foods are now becoming very, very popular to talk about in the media, because we have Robert F. Kennedy, who's now talking about making America healthy again. And that's a great thing. And I applaud Robert Kennedy for doing that. And I'm certainly on board with his agenda. But once again, it's a little bit too late that we're doing it. But now that we have the American people who are no longer being duped, who are now opening up their eyes to the fact that for years and years that they were misled by our country's leading health organizations like the American Cancer Society and the American Heart Association and the Center for Disease Control, and all these major organizations that were being manipulated by the food industry and big pharma. Now it's being exposed, and the American population are no longer accepting hook, line, and sinker what these organizations are telling us. And once again, I challenged these organizations back 30 years ago in my book, Goodbye Illness, Hello Wellness. And so we need to understand that what the New York Times did was a great thing for us to help to get this information out on their podcast just recently. But my suggestion to you, New York Times, is certainly don't hesitate. Don't wait so long. Get this information out. Live by your name, the times. These are the times, and get the information out in a timely fashion, because the American population will appreciate it, and so would I. So, until next time, I hope that you listen to my daily reels and long videos and my podcast that's on every single week, where I have leading experts on my podcast from national and internationally known experts on health, natural medicine, and the research that's being done in it. And so if you would help me out and like my channel, tell other people about it, subscribe to our channel, and we'll be back soon, tomorrow, to share with you more information. So until then, ciao for now.